Hey beauties, welcome back to my channel and welcome back for another upload. My name is Essence Janay, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you guys my everyday makeup routine. For those of you who have been part of this family for a while know that I do not wear makeup every single day, but when I do, this is pretty much what you're going to get. It's nothing too dramatic. It still has a little color, a little fun, but it's very soft and blown out, and that's what I've been loving. I used products in today's video that I felt were the best of the best, the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme. They are my favorite. I have a mixture of drugstore and high-end makeup in today's video just because I love both. I can't really pick between the two. You know, some products just perform better than others, and these ones definitely worked for me today. If you guys want all the details on this look, definitely keep on watching. But as always, before we get into today's video, if you guys are not yet subscribed, and by the end of this video, you like the content that you see, please make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as that bell notification so you can be notified every single time that I upload. Now, with all of that out the way, let's go ahead and jump into today's video. So make sure you grab your coffee, your water, your makeup brushes, or a snack, whichever is your preference, and let's get into it. Alright you guys, so I'm going to go ahead and start with priming my skin. I'm going to use the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base. I like to use this because it provides my skin with lots of moisture, and it just really preps the skin in a nice subtle way for any product that you put on top of it. So I'm just going to put a little bit all over the perimeter of my face. Now of course I'm going to go in with the second primer, and this one is just from Mercier. This is the Pure Canvas Primer. This is the blurring one, and I'm going to take this in my T-zone right in here. And I'm also going to spread it out to my cheeks because I do have larger pores in this area. So just to kind of fill them in a little bit, make it a little bit more smoother, just press this product in, as well as my chin and my T-zone. So when I'm done, I just like to press all of this in just to make sure that my skin is really absorbing the product. And you know, everything just looks nice and prepped. So now that we have that, I am going to spray my face with a little bit of the Colourpop Pretty Fresh Hyaluronic Setting Mist just to give my face more hydration, but I'm going to do that after I apply my foundation. I have been loving the Colourpop Pretty Fresh Hyaluronic Acid Foundation. This has just been my favorite product to use as far as actual foundations go. It creates such a beautiful canvas on the skin, helps even everything out, gives my face a nice glow. It does have decent coverage. It's not full coverage, but you can definitely build it up. But for more of like an everyday look, I just like to do one pump and just apply that everywhere. So our base looks nice and radiant. It also looks very even. I do tap on top with the sponge. This is just the e.l.f. Camo Sponge. I believe that's what this is called. It's for their camo concealer, but I'm just using it to tap in the product even more just to make sure everything has a nice smooth finish. It's not necessary, but it doesn't hurt. And I just like to tap, tap, tap. So now that we have the foundation applied, we are going to move into concealer. So I've been loving nonstop the Nars concealer. This is the Radiant Creamy one, and mine is in Praline, which is medium 3. And I just like to pop this on in all the areas in which I would highlight, of course, but as well as where I would conceal. Now what I love about this specific concealer is the consistency for one. Number two, the shade that I'm actually using isn't too light, but it's also not the exact shade as the foundation, so it gives us some kind of differentiation, or is that the right word? It gives us an even balance, you know, and I like that for my daily concealer. I don't want it to be too bright, but I also don't want it to be just the same as the foundation. So I'm just gonna start tapping this in. I'm only going to tap the center portion. I'm going to let the under eyes sit a little bit longer just because I like that. It does give it a little bit more coverage when you allow the concealer to sit This is definitely one of those concealers you can do that with. So I like to take advantage and just let it sit a little bit. I'm gonna move into cream contour. This is the Huda Beauty Tantour in Fair. And I'm gonna start applying this. I am using another e.l.f. brush. This one is the e.l.f. number 103. And I'm just gonna use this to lightly tap the product onto my skin and just create that definition that we all know and love. And then this is just like the first step to, you know, bringing some color back into the skin and just making it look a little bit more realistic. Now before we go ahead and set our face, I'm going to use the Nars Soft Matte Concealer. This one is in Biscuit. And I'm going to use this just to mute out my lids and just kind of prep them for eyeshadow. You guys know I love using this product for my lids always. And nothing has changed, especially for an everyday routine. Now to set the lids, I'm going to use my Rimmel Translucent Setting Powder. This stuff just works wonders, and I like that it's a pressed powder and not a loose one. Loose powders tend to be a little messy. Still gets the job done, does the same thing, but for something a little bit more cleaner and not having to, you know, clean up such a big mess, I just go in with my pressed powder. Alright guys, let's go ahead and talk eyeshadow. So the palette I'm going to be using today is the Warrior 2 palette from Juvia's Place. And as you guys can see, this is what the palette looks like. I'm sure you guys know what it looks like, but this is what we're using, okay? I've been using this quite a number of times, doing the same look over and over again, so I should have it down packed by now, but it's so effortless and just blown out and beautiful. I really like it. So what I'm first gonna do is grab this shadow right here called Ghana, and it's more of like a cool tone if you ask me. But I'm gonna take that shadow on a fluffy brush and I'm just gonna blow that out in my crease. I don't need it to be super intense or anything, just a little bit of shadow definitely goes a long way. The pigments on the Juvia's Place palettes, as everyone should know if you don't know, they are very consistent and pigmented and blendable, and this palette is definitely no different. With a smaller, more pinched, flat, defined brush, but still a little fluffy, I'm going to grab Beaute, which is this lighter brown shadow right here. And what I'm going to do with this is place this in the outer corner of the upper lash line, just right here on this outer part, and then a little into the crease, but not too much into it, just to kind of give a nice little mixture of the shadows. I'm just going to use this brush to place this shadow right on this outer corner. Using a more fluffier brush, I'm going to just blow this out and blend it. So I am going in my crease, but most of this color is concentrated on the outer corner, which is what I want. And I'm just going to smoke this out. Now I want to add a little bit of color, so I'm going to take some of this shadow right here, which is called Janay. So it's this burgundy shadow right here, and I'm going to use a really small defined blending brush just to add a little bit of that up here in this area, like the outer corner. And I'm going to start very lightly because I just want to add small amount of this because the shadow is very pigmented and I don't want the look to be overpowered by this red shade because I'm not going for like red burgundy, but I do want a little bit of color. You see the difference that it makes between this eye and this eye? Just gives it more color, more life, and still soft because I'm not using too much of the product. So this may seem a little counteractive to some, but we need something to set the inner part of the lid, considering we've been focusing all the shadows and shades on the outer corner. So I'm going to go back into Beaute, which is this one right here, and on a more flat yet still fluffy brush, I'm just going to press this on the inner part of the lid and just kind of bring everything full circle. And then just, you know, blend everything all together but with that added color out here, it still gives us a little bit of definition. Not much, just a little bit, enough to make a difference and for this look just to have some type of dimension. So for a nice smoky liner effect, I'm gonna take the palette and I'm gonna take Shawada, which is like the black shadow right here, and I'm gonna use a flat definer brush for this step. I'm just gonna dip my brush in there lightly because it is very pigmented. So I'm gonna tap it off a little bit, and I'm just gonna run this on my upper lash line closest to the outer corner. Just run this back and forth. Just placing that line there, creating that definition, not winging it out. And then I'm gonna grab another brush, just something a little bit more fluffier, just to help me smoke it out and just go back and forth. I feel like where the liner is right now is perfect. You can definitely deepen it up with a little bit more black or whatever you wanted to do, but I really wanted this to be very soft and still everyday wearable for me. So you do what suits you best, but trust me, this alone is just gonna make the world of a difference, especially when I put my lashes on. Now, I didn't set underneath my eyes yet, and I meant to do that way before we started shadow, but let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm gonna use the Laura Mercier translucent powder. I do have the mini one here. And I'm just going to tap this underneath my eyes. I have to set my T-zone area so that way I can work on my lower lash line, which is also going to be super simple because we're just using the shadows that we use at the top, at the bottom, minus the black. Because again, I want it to be soft, so I feel like sometimes black shadow does not come off as soft depending on how you use it. So I'm going to skip out on using it for my lower lash line. Now to set everything in place, I'm going to use the Colourpop. You guys know I love this for this step. This just helps melt everything in. Using setting spray throughout your routine at least 3 times really helps the longevity of the makeup. So I'm going to let that dry down a little bit and then tap on top with my sponge. So you want to start tapping when it has dried down a little bit. You don't want to go straight in with your sponge because if you do, you could risk the fact that you could disturb the makeup underneath. So you want to make sure it's a little bit dry before tapping on top with your sponge. Alright you guys, my lashes are now on. Hopefully they stay in place. I did not have the easiest time putting them on. But we're going to move into bronzing up the skin a little bit. So I want to add a little bit of color. I'm going to use this palette. This is the Ace Beauty Bronzed in Paradise palette. As you see, it has an array of shades, so that's great. It works, I would say, for a lot of different skin tones. But I'm going to take the first 2 shadows, which are the lightest 2 in the palette, and I'm going to use that for bronzer, just to apply it. I like that this palette has different shadows to offer, because you can mix it up and just create whatever you want. For me personally, I like using these 2 shades at the bottom because they are the lightest and it creates the most natural bronzed skin, if you ask me, and I just love using it. So if you have watched any of my previous tutorials before, then you know I like to take a secondary bronzer of some sort, specifically the ABH bronzer in Saddle, because it is so deep that it provides the right definition for like a powdered contour. But considering we have many different shades to use in this palette, I'm going to take this one right here and I'm going to use this to create definition today. Instead of going in with a secondary palette, I'm just going to go ahead and use this to do so. And it just makes my job easier because it's less products I have to worry about pulling out, and it's still just as beautiful as the ABH one. So I'm just taking a little bit of that same darker shadow and I'm just using it to contour my nose basically. I do this differently every time, truthfully. Sometimes I use a little brush, sometimes I just go on with the same brush I was using. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. And then I like to take a little bit of translucent powder and kind of reverse contour with it. So I'll take a little bit on my sponge and then just put a little here and here and then down the bridge of my nose. So I'll let that sit for a little bit while we move on to our next product, which is a new favorite of mine. This is the Putty Blush from e.l.f. and this is in Bahamas. This is the only shade that I have right now, but it's so beautiful and versatile that I feel like this shade really works with a lot of different looks. So I'm just going to swirl my brush in this, and then I'm just going to place it right here. This really complements the eyeshadow and just really warms up the skin and the face, and you know, I can't be mad about that. The one thing I really like about this blush in specific is that it works really well on top of an already set base. So as you guys remember, I did set with powder, and this is more of like a cream product, but when you put it on, it kind of, you know, just melts into the powder. It doesn't really disturb anything, and who doesn't love that? So for highlighter, I am going to take it back to an old favorite. This is the Urban Decay Afterglow palette, and I'm going to take a mixture of these three shadows here, and I'm just going to mix them together and just create some highlight. Really have been liking this palette because it's pigmented but not too much, and still gives kind of like that natural kind of highlight. You can definitely build it up to the intensity that you want. It's not super intense offhand, but if you grab enough product, believe me, it will show up. So as you guys can see, my left lash is being problematic. So while I let that dry, let's finish out this look with some setting spray. So I am going to use two today. First, I'm going to use the Colourpop, and then I'm going to go in with the Fenty Baby What It Do. You guys know I love this. This is my holy grail. I like to use it all the time, any day, every day that I actually put on makeup. But for an extra boost, you know, a little bit more glow than what we already have going on, I'm going to use the Fenty because it's not oily, it's not sticky, and it definitely doesn't disrupt the work that we've already done. It just makes your skin look like it's glowing from within, and I really, really want that for today's look. Alright beauties, so this here is the finished and completed look. This is what I've been doing. This is what I've been loving. I have to say that I have been so obsessed with the Juvia's Place palettes. They're just so pigmented. The formulas are just very consistent throughout the different palettes that I have been trying out, and it's sad to say that it took me this long to even, you know, go in that direction, but I love it. Most of the products that I used today were pretty affordable. There were some high-end products in here, and I feel like that's okay. I mean, yes, you can achieve a full face using just affordable products, which I have done plenty of times on my channel, but these are just the products in specific that I have been loving to use more so on an everyday basis. I mean, as most of you know, I don't wear makeup every single day, but when I am putting on makeup, this is pretty much what you're gonna get, and I just think it works, at least for me. You guys can let me know what you think down in the comments. As always, if you liked today's video and the content, definitely make sure you go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. Leave a little comment, let's have a conversation. But other than that, I am going to close out today's video here. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will catch you all in my next